We are continuing with free response 3, question 2. So question 2 is we are experiencing in the economy a drop in credit card fees that causes people to use their credit cards more and go to their bank ATM and draw out cash less often. So in general, the money demand or the demand for actual money is going to drop. Is going to decrease. So we want to draw a correctly labeled graph of the money market and show how the nominal interest rate is going to be affected by a downward shift in money demand. Okay, so your graph should look like this. You want to have your nominal interest rate on the vertical axis, your quantity of money on the horizontal axis. Your money supply curve should be vertical. And you want to show a leftward downward shift in the money demand. And you don't have to put these numbers in. This is for explaining the next one. But so this is, let me just get this out of the way. This is going to be, I'm going to use this to help explain one of your next questions. But anyway, so this is what this should look like. Okay, so you want to show that the nominal interest rate actually drops. Okay, so we're actually starting here, and we experience the shift leftward of the money demand, and so that's a shift in the money demand and a movement down and along the money supply curve. So you're going to have that movement from here to here. Okay. All right, so that's good. That takes care of part A. Part B, given the interest rate change, what happens to bond prices in the short run? Well, I'm going to take a little bit of time to explain this. The short answer is there's an inverse relationship between the overall interest rate in the economy and bond prices. When one goes up, the other one goes down. When interest rate goes down, the bond prices go up. But I want you to bear with me here and understand a little bit more about why that is. Okay, so the key, you can pause a video and read this and take as much time as you want, but the key is the concept of opportunity cost. So you have to think about folks who buy bonds are investors. They're actually lending money expecting a return. So they're constantly looking around for the best return for their money. So remember, when you buy a bond, the rate is fixed for the life of the bond. So as the interest rates of a bond goes up, they become more attractive as the interest rate goes down, because that's the return they're going to get on their money. It becomes less attractive. So if we look at an example, and let's say that we are going to buy a bond with a par or face value of $1,000 that carries a 7% rate of return, that would pay $70 a year, which would be 7% of 1,000. Okay, now let's say that this is the interest rates, and this is what would happen to the prices, right? So this is very simple to see, understanding that when you buy a bond, that bond stays at 7%. It's not going to change. But if the interest rate in the economy drops, as it did in our example, so let's jump back over there, and let's just say it dropped, and that's why I have these numbers. Let's just say it dropped from 7% to 6%, the nominal interest rate. So now you have a bond that actually pays more than the interest rate, the going rate of return in the economy. So we can skip down. So what that means is that your bond is actually worth more than the $1,000 because you could sell it for a premium, because all you need to do is sell it, and a person who's buying it, now that the nominal interest rates have dropped, is only going to expect 6% on the bonds they're buying now, because they're going to be because an investor is only going to expect the interest rate that is prevalent in the economy. So if you have a bond that's currently paying 7 and the overall interest nominal interest rate drops, then you can sell that bond for a premium. Since it would be carrying a higher interest rate than what is currently available in the market. So that's why you have this inverse relationship between the nominal interest rate in the economy and the prices of bonds. Thinking about it in terms of reselling them to once the interest rate changes. And I'll let you read what would happen here if rates go up. And hopefully you get a better idea of what's happening here with nominal interest rates and bond prices in the relative short run. Okay, so that is the long answer for part B. The short answer is that if the interest rate drops, like we are showing here, then bond prices are going to rise. Okay. All right. Now, part C. Given the interest rate change in part A, what will happen to price level in the short run? Well, when you have a drop in the interest rates, okay, when you have that, let's go back over here. That is going to mean that now, thinking from the perspective of a borrower, okay, now thinking from a perspective, so let's jump over here. So this is where this is going to get, this is the trickiest part. So now when we think of a price level, we're not thinking from the perspective of the investor buying the bond. We're thinking of the perspective of the investor of a firm that wants to borrow money in order to invest and expand. So when the interest rates drops, that's going to mean more investment. The investment that we talk about in terms of firms borrowing money to expand or do a project. So that's going to mean investment that goes up. Now, when the interest rate drops, that means consumption could go up, because the interest rates on credit cards goes down, which means people are more likely to buy more, to consume more on credit. And the other thing that happens when the interest rates drop is that could also cause an increase in net exports. Okay, because you can have more of a capital outflow. So these three things could happen, and that happens because this happens, and what actually causes the price level to go up is, if we jump back to our question 1 graph, is those things are going to cause the aggregate demand to shift to the right. In other words, anything that's going to, and I should put this here. So when you have this lower interest, lower nominal interest rate, which causes more capital investment, more consumption, more exports relative to imports, then you're going to have a shift to the right. And you don't have to draw this again. You do not have to draw this again. You just have to explain that the aggregate demand shifts to the right, which pushes price levels up. Okay? So that's going to take care of question C. Now, D is we want to identify an open market operation the Federal Reserve could use to keep the nominal interest rate constant at the level that it existed before a credit card fees, and explain. Okay, so what we want to show now is what we want to think about that. In order for the interest rate to come back up, let's jump back to our graph over here. Which one do I want to use? This one, right? In order for us to get back up to here, we're going to need to shift the money supply curve to the left. That's what the Fed is going to try to do. So they're going to try to decrease the money supply so that we move back to here and return to our original interest rate. And you want to make sure that you say, well, how you want to explain how they would do that. They want to take money out of the money supply. So in order to do that, they're going to sell. The Federal Reserve is going to sell bonds to banks. They sell the bonds. The bank pays for the bonds. The money is flowing from the banks, from the money supply, back into the Federal Reserve. So that takes money out of the money supply. So the Fed is going to sell bonds, and this is contractionary fiscal policy. Contractionary fiscal policy, right? Let's just put that there. That's what that is, and they do it by selling. The Fed, the Federal Reserve, sells bonds to whoever. You can say banks. That's what they normally do. Okay, they sell bonds to the banks. Okay, so I believe that takes care. Let me just put that in there, right, so you don't get confused. Okay, so and that would push the interest rate hopefully back up. And I believe that takes care of question number 2. Yes. Okay.